welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond Podcast. And I'm your host, Ivotres Littles, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about an independent film called Immortal that came out in 2019. Someone contacted me and asked me to review this film, and I never heard of it. And, I was curious myself, and I did read a little description about it. And it was like, okay, I get it. But I wanted to, obviously I wanted to see more. So I sat down and really went through this film. And surprisingly, it's really good. And I was like, why haven't I heard about this film? What is this film? But it was the film itself left you in mystery. But we just have to talk about it. In this review, there will be spoilers. There's no other way of explaining this film or talking about it unless there's spoilers. So if you want to watch Immortal, or you've never seen Immortal and you do want to watch it, definitely it's on Amazon Prime. Go watch it before you before I get into this review. And it's a thriller horror, and I kind of break it down so we can get an understanding of a story, because they're definitely different but the same. And I really liked it because it was different. It was way different, but it was directed by 4 different directors. So I'm not sure if one directed each one or they all helped each other in some way. This film when I looked up information, it's just as a mystery as the film, but it makes me more intrigued. Now I want to really know what this film was about. So it was directed by Tony Colley, John, DeBoch. I hope it's John DeBoch, Danny Isaacs, and Rob Margolis. I hope I say their names right. I'm so ashamed. But there's 4 different stories. Each story is kind of their own, but I almost feel like they could overlap them in some form. But so basically these people go through their everyday life, and something tragically happens. But in the tragedy that happens, they wake up from that state of the tragedy. So they wake up from whatever horrible thing has happened to them, but they healed. It's a slow, painful process, but they healed. And it's like, okay, it's like discovering you're one of the X-Men almost. It continues on with the story to see what they will do next with this ability. So definitely it gives you insight on, many different perspectives on that. The first story is called Chelsea, and all the students is trying to get into the classroom. And so he's standing outside the door, and he noticed one of his students feels very uncomfortable talking to the coach. This teacher is just like, something has to be done kind of look on his face. So he teaches the class, and he centers Chelsea out. After class, he wants to talk to her. And he's like, look, I saw what I saw, and knowing, it makes you feel uncomfortable and stuff like that. So, you could talk to me. We could talk to somebody. And she's like, no, I don't want to get him in trouble. He's a good coach. I need to go to college. I can't afford it. And he's like, no, we need to talk to somebody. This is not right. It's not right. And it gave her more confidence. She felt like, she didn't have to, deal with what the coach was doing. So the teacher, Mr. Shaggis, was like, okay, so meet me, tomorrow, and we'll talk to, the counselor, whatnot. Now, the coach is something else. I mean, you could tell he is just after the teens. They were out there training, and he was just like, I mean, he couldn't contain himself. It was just so gross, and it made you feel so uncomfortable, and everything was in slow motion. So you could just see what he was seeing in slow motion, and you just want to go through the screen and wring his neck. It's like, it was such an intense, just disgusting time. You're just like, ugh, this coach. So she gets to the car and as she opens the door, something strikes her in the neck, and you notice someone is carrying her through the woods, you know, with a bag over her head, and you know, she's tied up. So you're thinking, oh my goodness, this coach, he's gonna do something horrible to her. But to the surprise, it was the teacher. Mr. Shaggist was like, you know, in his like hunting getup. I was like you're completely like blown away. You like, well, he was just there consoling her for, you know, her feeling so uncomfortable with this coach touching her the wrong way. And it turns out he was the one that was looking at her in a different way. I also figured, this is my idea of what I thought what was going on in his head was, since there was the coach that already was eyeing her, and other students knew that if she came up missing, he would be the first one they would come after or talk to, because he definitely was, you know, could be a suspect of that. He started telling her a story about how he and why he's like this. You know, he was walking one day, he got something tragically happened to him. He should have been dead. That's what he said. But he woke up. He couldn't believe it. And, you know, he was like, I'm going to shoot myself. But you going to run. You got all these coordinates you could find help and stuff like that. But when I wake up, I'm going to hunt you down. He shot himself. Brains flew out. He got up as she took off running, and he started looking for her. She tripped and fell, and he kind of, was getting close to where she is, because in the cell phone, he put a tracking device, which I thought was kind of like, you know, that's pretty messed up. I kind of knew there was a tracking, because it's like, okay, I'm shot, I'm out, and you take off running. Look, which direction would she go? And he was like, oh, give me a second. And then he like opened a device, and he's like, oh, she went that way. So, you know, very clever, very, very clever. And she was like, please don't, please, don't do this. And he shot her right in the chest. She woke up, and she got up and had the bow in her chest, and he took it out, and he was like, well, this changes everything. He's like, well, it just left you in one of the most suspense moments. Now he finds out he can't die. He can't die, and neither can she. Next story. And you're just like, what happened? But it goes on to the next story. And the next story is Gary and Vanessa. And this one was very interesting. Mario Van Peebles was there. I was like, where's Mario Van Peebles? Where he's been? He plays the cable guy. And I was like, Mario Van Peebles, I could spot that. So we have Gary and Vanessa, who is struggling with finances, trying to think of some kind of plan to get the money. But he can't do the best he can, but he knows he has an insurance policy that would take care of the family. So they decide for him to commit suicide, but look like an accident. Somebody you love is kind of pushing you to do these acts as well, which I thought was kind of interesting, because she was kind of edging him on to commit the suicide for the family, but not at the same time. You're just like, I don't trust Vanessa. They were following the steps and doing the things normal. See the neighbors, go for a walk, take out the trash, do normal things. So when they're plotting this, it doesn't look out of the ordinary. So he went up on the roof, he started fiddling around with it, and then she's sitting down in the living room, and she's like, you can see the anticipation of what he's going to do up there. You just hear splat, and it was like, it was so sudden when it happened that you didn't even have time to blink. You were too busy looking at her, how she was reacting, and then when you see him out there, it was just like, what? And so she went out there to make sure he was dead, poking him and stuff like that with a stick. If I didn't mention that earlier, she is pregnant. She looks like she's pretty big. She looks about 8 months. Maybe 7. She looks pretty big. And she's on the phone talking to some guy or girl. You have no idea. She wants to call 911, but she doesn't want to look like, she doesn't want to sound suspicious. So she's doing her acting skills, and she does it. But then she goes into labor. Her water broke. So her water broke, and it broke into the kitchen on the way to the couch. The guy's out there dead with his brains on the ground, and she actually goes into labor. You need to go and get the phone that's near the kitchen. So she gets up, kind of hurrying up in there, and slipped on the fluid when her water broke. She slipped on it, hit her head, and lay flat. Like, wow, like right to the floor. Pants down, you see the blood, and then you see that it didn't push the baby right on out to the kitchen floor. The baby is dead, still attached to the umbilical cord, and you're just like, what in the world? You see the guy outside, Gary, he starts waking up and calling for her, and then it cuts off. You're just like, and he doesn't even, all he will know is a freak accident. Then there's another story, which I think is probably the saddest of them all. I rarely cry in horror films, rarely. There are a few that have had me teared up, but this next segment of Immortal, Ted and Mary, it was so hard to watch, but very good. I think it was the better out of all of them, and the saddest out of all of them, but it really got emotional. So Ted and Mary are this couple that been together forever, and she is suffering from some type of horrific cancer. And so they decided to have a crew wanted to film them about the diagnosis and then how they live with it, it was like a film project, to help others go through whatever she was going through. So, and what I really liked in this, if you follow Tony Todd and a lot of his films, or all of his films, if you watched him, he has such a range of, he could just be anything at any moment you tell him. And him as Ted, you really felt the emotional and the love he had for the character Mary. And he was sitting down talking to one of the producers. The reason they were filming this because they were talking about also assisted suicide. And, that's a touchy subject in itself. So one of the producers kind of realized like, oh, they're planning to do their assisted suicide, today. And after they left, they were getting ready. So Mary sat across from Ted, and he started explaining to her, and he was like, are you sure? And she was ready. She was going through the pain, excruciating pain, and she was tired and stuff like that. It was just so sad because you didn't want it to happen, because in the short amount of time this was filmed, the love and passion between the two characters, you knew they loved each other, and you felt so bad, and you wanted her to be okay. So he put a bag over her head, he put a little pipe in there, for the gas, and she got scared. For a moment, it was like, now, what are we doing again? Like, you could tell she had second thoughts of this, but the pain was so excruciating. The bag over, put the gas in there, turned it on, and told her how to breathe and stuff like that. And then a moment later, you see her wake up from it, and she's like, it's not working. It's not working. She takes the bag off her head, and right across from her, Ted had a bag and one of the hoses in under the bag. So he planned to kill himself without telling her. So they were going to die together because he could not live without her. You saw his last breath, and she was trying to, oh my God, it didn't work. So she went and she sliced her wrist, and they healed. It cuts off hearing her sob. The hardest segment I've ever seen. I was like, oh my goodness. How can you, I mean, she got double pain now. That was tragic. And that part, Ted and Mary, that one was so sad. My heart crushed with that one. But it was definitely a good one. The next one was Warren. Warren is, he's on the phone with his mom, walking through a park, and all of a sudden he walks into the street, not paying attention, of course, and he gets hit by a car really, really hard. The lady jumps out to see what's going on, and you could see his neck was broken. He was a mess. So instead of helping him, she jumps in her car and takes off. And just leave him there. Just leave him there. I'm like, that's pretty messed up. And later he wakes up, walks away, trying to figure it out. But as he's walking away, he finds a license plate. So he ends up taking it with him because, he does remember what happened, but he doesn't remember, the moment of impact, of course. So he's walking, trying to compose himself. He gets home. He tries to call, for help, but he passes out. Then he wakes up again. He was like cooking something or cutting something. He cut himself and he felt that pain. And then he went to go, to the sink to wash it. He noticed the wound was gone. It was pretty interesting. He jumps in the pool and he sits down there. So he tries to, drown himself. The first time, took some weights and went on, sat down there. And then he came back up and realized, oh my God, it's been 25 minutes. So much time went by. He's like, okay, I can't die. There's something weird. But in the whole process, he's thinking, I need to find the people who did this. He must have called it a private investigator because this person came over and had everything about all the information he could think of the woman that hit him because of the license plate. And, he was like, I just want to talk to them. The wife came home and she was like, what the hell? He was like sitting on the couch with a gun and said, you come sit down. We're going to have a chat. So he was explaining her who he was. And then at that time, her husband came home and he told him to sit down. And her husband's name is Chuck. And he was like, Chuck and Sonia, let's sit down, let's talk. So this is what happened to me. Your wife hit me and left me for dead. And for some strange reason, I'm here talking to you people. And he said, I just want you to know what kind of wife you have. This is what she did and she got away with it. But I'm here to make sure she doesn't because I want you to know. And you really legitimate feel that he is just there to let them know what has happened and he didn't want it to go unpunished. Calmly walks out the door. And so don't do anything weird and just walks out the door. And you're kind of like, that's it? You thought he was going to shoot them because now they see him. As soon as he left, they're like, no, we're going to get the cops. We're going to, get the authorities. He can't be doing this. And, his wife was like, no, I did hit him with the car. He was dead. I don't know how he's sitting here, but he did it. He was dead. I swear. I did hit him with a car. It's like, no, look at him. He's standing right here. He looks fine. This guy's crazy. Nothing of that happened. So they go outside, get in the car, and her husband Chuck is not paying attention, and Warren hits him with the car. Now he's all broken up, and she is screaming. And he looks at her like, now this is the pain I felt, and you're going to feel it too. And that's it. If you were immortal, what would you do with it? How would you cope with it? How would you learn from it? Who would want to live forever, right? But what's so interesting is that none of these people knew they had that ability. So when they were instantly killed, did it trigger something? Was it like X-Men where, you hit a certain age or a traumatic event, or your adrenaline just goes nuts and it triggers some type of DNA, dormant thing going on, and you wake up from it and stuff like that. So you don't have an understanding. All you know is that when something tragically happens to them, instantly they die and they wake up. With knowledge of what happened too. It's not like, they wake up, where am I? Where am I? No, they wake up and it's like, holy crap, what happened? Why am I not dead? I should be dead because of what happened. First one, segment with Chelsea, this young teen, and she looked for her teacher for guidance, for trust, and he betrayed her. And number 2, Gary and Vanessa. Gary will never know that Vanessa was help pushing him to kill himself so she can use the money for the baby and for whoever she was on the phone with. He will never know what was really her agenda. Then you go back to Ted and Mary, which I think it was the most gut-wrenching, saddest part of the entire film, where you're going through this tragic event in your life. Mary will live with the pain of the cancer and also the pain of losing her husband. Then you go back to Warren, where he's minding his own business, doing his own thing, and someone hit him and he seeks revenge. And I think at some point we all are these different characters, and it's scary because it's like, okay, think of the idea of someone trying to kill themselves or a freak accident, and you live to tell the story. Definitely rememberable stories, definitely, and it's worth watching. And it's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. I would highly recommend. It's a horror thriller. It's definitely different. It's like Final Destination. It has that Final Destination feel, but death has a different design. So definitely watch it. And thank you for watching Horror Movie and Beyond. Oh my goodness. I can't even say my own thing. Thank you for watching Horror Movies and Beyond podcast. Hope you continue to watch. There will be more of these coming up soon. It's a new thing, so I'm excited to try something new. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to watch Immortal, and it's on Amazon Prime, and I believe that you will really enjoy it. Thank you, and have a good one. Bye-bye.